your cosmic consciousness will always help with that. Because for those of you who feel like you are a little stuck with your, shall we say, human patterns, human behaviors, human beliefs, human emotions, when you open spiritually, it accelerates your ability to release and move through those patterns, behaviors, limitations far faster. And that cosmic consciousness is what you remember as home.
What can you tell us about that original intention for the human, or what you refer to as the future human, when it comes to activating this cosmic consciousness?
We can tell you that the next few centuries, humans are very much a part of this change, and that is very much a part of the design of the human. The future human is simply a human that is allowed to understand its place in the universe. On a sensory, energetic level, understand it. To be able to stand as a human being on Earth and realize you are connected to everything.
Lee Harris, welcome back on Just Tap In, brother. I wanted to ask you to begin with, what is the most exciting wisdom teaching that is coming through for you and your guides at this point in human history?
Wow. Well, firstly, great to be back with you, Emilio. Always happy to be with you. And it's hard for me to, it's a great question, but it's hard for me to identify one single thing. So I'll just go with what comes through, which is that we are in a time of radical change, and radical change brings with it an inner speed to your own healing or transformation or developing awareness that is perhaps way faster than anything any of us have experienced before. And that's both collective and personal. So of course, you might be in a slow phase in your own life right now. Maybe that's where you find yourself. But most of us, and especially I think those of us who've been students of growth, awareness, spirituality for a long time, I'm almost 4 decades in, 16 to, I'm on year 33 of my kind of awareness of things opening. And I think the hurtling speed that's happening can be really thrilling and exciting and really rich. And I feel like we have to remember and honor that, especially in times where we're seeing so many narratives that are shared online or in the news or whatever it is, or even parroted between us as humans, that are very doom, gloom, low vibration, hopelessness focused. And I never think that's the truth. So long as we're alive, there's always possibility for transformation, for healing, for love. And so the one thing that the Z's, I think, my guides keep bringing through is the reminder of our power in these transformational times, who we're becoming, why we're becoming, who we're becoming, and what we're becoming. And I think just as a human who, like everyone else, goes through my own process with that, my own evolution, my own journey, it's good to be kind to yourself as it all happens. I came from a time in self-growth and spirituality where we weren't necessarily taught to be kind on ourselves. When I was in my early 20s, 25 years ago, it could be sometimes a punishing culture, the self-growth culture. And I feel like those days are gone. Thankfully, I think we as a society are becoming more heart-based and more rooted in an awareness that there is something far bigger at play than perhaps what most of us were trained or told to believe. And I'm enjoying seeing more people experience that and come to know that for themselves. So that's what comes to me in response to that great question.
You brought up this speed or almost this acceleration that we've been going through. And I wanted to ask you there because I feel that consciousness might have a link with the way we experience linear time. And I'm curious to know, because you are going literally in the next few days into a mystery school with your community, and these are mystery teachings in and of themselves, how do you view consciousness and the way that we accelerate in that change the way we're perceiving these events that are unfolding in our life, the events that are unfolding in the collective, this speed that you're talking about as it relates to consciousness?
Good question. I think what's interesting is that we as human beings are often taught to see the external circumstance as a thing and then to have a reaction to it. But actually, consciousness would tell us it's all happening the other way round. So something shifts in us as a people on the planet, and then the outer circumstance on the planet responds. That's what the guides have always said, that consciousness is something that can flow through us if we allow it to. It's why when people have spiritual awakenings or they go through a really tough time in their life and that is their spiritual awakening and it pops them into either a stronger sense of intuition or a relative who has passed over in your life or a dear friend, suddenly you feel like you're in communication with them. Awakening happens differently for different people. Some people it's the death of a loved one or a tragic or a difficult circumstance. Other people, they just have this spontaneous pop open. Anybody who goes into that awakening state is very familiar with the ability to experience worlds in and through themselves that previously the world was not telling them to experience. You know, the world tells us, watch this movie, listen to this song, read this book, go to this school and learn this thing. And that's kind of it. That's, you know, for most of us in the way we were raised, unless you were raised tribally or with a strong sense of spirituality in your home or your awareness, most of us were taught that. So to me, what the guides will talk about a lot is the rise in consciousness and the speed at which consciousness is rising on the planet. But it has I guess the best way I could explain it is if you're moving out of your old home and you've got plenty of stuff in your home which represents your life and all the years you've lived, when you go to move house, you're going to have to pack everything up. You're going to find dust. You're going to find there's going to be a level of disruption to your environment as you're moving things out so that you can move into a new space. And I think consciousness works the same way. So new consciousness floods into us. Or let's boil it down to a very practical example. Let's say you, Emilio, suddenly decide that your relationship to abundance is not what it could be. And you catch this part of your brain that goes, oh, hang on, yeah, I'm running some parental programming here around lack in money. And that may have been true for my parents 30 years ago. And therefore that may have been what I was handed when I was growing up because I heard them say that. But it's no longer true for me because I'm not them in their situation. I'm also not them in their time. So I have to let that go so I can let in my abundance consciousness, let that come back. But your first experience will be the burn of the discomfort of the feeling and the thought in your awareness of, oh, I've got these lack issues. Now, if I can let those lack issues go, I'm going to allow abundance to flow through me and come to me in my way. And who knows what that will look like? That will look a certain way materially or in friendships or in whatever area you want more abundance in your life to come to you. But until we remove the old, we don't know what you're capable of. So I think we're in this period of time where depending on your focus, depending on your experience, depending on what you're healing that day, you're either going to be in the realms of higher consciousness, having higher or more improved experiences in your life in areas that you previously weren't able to attain, or you'll be hitting rock bottom in some areas, or you'll be feeling the burn in some areas of your life as you're being pushed to have a breakthrough. Now take what I just said about the individual and apply it to the planet as a whole. That's what the guides explain, and it helps me as a human being who, like everyone else, you see some of the heartbreaking or horrific things that happen on the planet, and it's hard. It's not how most of us ever want to see the world going, or see that be the experiences others are having, or ourselves. But at the same time, we are in this flush period. So it creates a lot of chaos, especially chaos around old ideas or old identities. So you see it playing out in the wider world, where whether it's areas of finance or government structure or anything that's outdated, it's dying a very angry vocal death. And the other thing we have to remember is we're in relationship to those systems. So much the same way, Emilio, I said to you, as you go on your journey of abundance, you're going to hit a moment where you have to either align with, celebrate, and appreciate what your parents taught you about abundance, and it often can be both, let go of anything that was true for them around abundance that mustn't be true for you, so that you don't block what's supposed to come through you as an ambassador of abundance for your life and for the lives of others. I see it the same on the planet. We're going through this awkward time where we're in response to all of these things that are going on. It's why you see people arguing. You see people fighting about their side of how they see a certain issue. And I think spiritual maturity for all of us, and we won't always achieve it. Sometimes we'll get caught in the fight because it's relevant for us and for our healing. And we might catch ourselves and go, oh, wow, I just got really caught up in that as a fight. But spiritual maturity for most of us, I think, is being able to see the fight going on in front of you, have compassion maybe for both sides, and go, oh, I know there's pain on whenever we're in a fight, there's always some pain or something that we're trying to outrun or get around or strategize to not have the pain or the suffering. So can we have compassion for both sides of the fight, and at the same time can we understand the bigger picture, and that this fight that we're witnessing and having a response to is also just part of growth, learning, and where we're going at this time on Earth. Now, of course, that's easier said than done when you see horrific things happening. That's a different category. But I'm talking about when people are arguing about things online. You see that a lot right now. And yeah, we're in this very, the guides have said, we're in this very immature time when it comes to our capacity to take in all the information that has suddenly been unleashed upon people the last 25 to 30 years because of the power of the internet. We're still very young at being able to assimilate it all. And so I think what I feel is we're going to see more of a maturity in conversation around how we respond to the outside world. At the moment, I feel like we're being... there is a reliance on us being drawn into these fights. And I think the spiritual maturity for us is going to be recognizing, we don't need to be fighting each other about these issues. There are just differences of opinion. There are differences of experience. And it's funny, as I sit with you, I feel quite a strong wave of way showers and people beginning to hold healing through that path on the planet. Conversations where everyone is honored. Conversations where it isn't a right, wrong, them, us. So back to your original question, I think consciousness is rising. I think it's dredging up the lowest parts of us at the same time, and we're seeing that play out, and we might be feeling it in ourselves. But at the same time, the speed of it all is dizzying, and it's what's causing some of the chaos and some of the instability that if you think about it, is a spiritual truth. So I know a lot of people say, oh no, the world is so unstable, and spirituality teaches you everything's unstable. There is no safety apart from the safety we can access, feel within, and be in resonance with. But most of us have been trained out of that truth. Very few of us have ever been invited to live in that deeply and fully, and there are many of us either finding our way back there or working on parts of ourselves existing in that space, and then many of us who also like to, our job, if you like, for whatever reason or because of our choices, to help others experience that. So very long-winded answer, Emilio, but that's kind of what came out of me in response.
And maybe we've also heard that the chaos and the instability is actually the best place to create. And I was going through some of your most recent energy updates where you look into the themes that are going on for the collective at the time. And one of the most recent ones has been that there are major downloads in creatives and healers for 2026/2027 that are coming in now. And because, we emphasize there that there is these way showers that are here listening to this, the builders of these new paradigms, the builders of this new consciousness, what have you received around what people can do around the downloads that they're receiving creatively about what they're maybe meant to leave behind or create or build at this time? Since we're in such a big transition as a collective, where the old structures are falling down, something new has to emerge.
Great question. And, most people I'm sure are going to be familiar with the term download, but it's kind of like when some clarity comes to you or a vision comes to you. Let's say, one day you suddenly get this vision or this idea or this sense that, oh my God, I'm supposed to build this, or I feel like I'm supposed to do this. It's usually something on your future path that seems quite sizable or positive or different. And I think what I have noticed, having, I've done this work now for 21 years and been a student for 33, but I think, or an active student, I should say, because I think we're all a student from the day that we're born. But what I've noticed is, both in myself and with people I've worked with and seen over the years, our biggest challenge is often the human tendency to want to speed things up or make things happen with these downloads. Because what can happen is let's use this example. It's a classic example. It's one that many people have had. You suddenly wake up tomorrow, Emilio, and you go, I'm supposed to build a retreat center. That's my download. That's my vision. That could be absolutely true. And it might be that by 2033, you are supposed to build a retreat center. Can you let that download sit in you and percolate in you? And can you notice when parts of that download start to show up and synchronously manifest? Or do you start pushing a boulder called a retreat center up a hill? I've met some people along the way who've emptied their bank account to follow a vision, and then the vision hasn't quite worked, and then they're left with nothing, and they're shocked because they're like, but I had a vision. Visions aren't instruction manuals. Visions aren't instruction manuals from IKEA on how to put the furniture together. It's not that. A vision is a future possibility and a future destination that you are working towards. And what we forget is that when we receive that vision, it starts working on us. It's not, build a retreat center. Okay, human must now figure out how to build a retreat center. It's not that. It's far more complicated than that. It's far more complex and rich. The idea of building a retreat center hits you, might take you 3 years to be ready. But it hits you for a reason, because you need to start thinking bigger. You need to understand there is a bigger trajectory up ahead. And for some reason, for your soul, we don't know why, that's up to you and your soul, there's a reason it's good for you to start working on the idea of this possibility now, or at least including it in your long-term vision. And equally, if in 2032, the year before you were ready to do it, you decided not to, that's okay too. I think sometimes with downloads, creatives, healers, visionaries, anybody sees it as an instruction that's come from spirit that they have to do. And my advice is always, no, we're always in collaboration with spirit. So if spirit has given you something that feels like an instruction, you pay very close attention to how that's working on the ground as you start to move toward it. And if you're hitting roadblock after roadblock, pay attention, because your body and where you are at as an energy field is clearly not ready to manifest this. And there's always a small chance that you've been shown this retreat center that you think you're going to build because, somewhere down the line, someone's going to come up to you and go, hey, Emilio, there are 6 of us creating a retreat center. Would you like to go in on it with us? And you go, oh, actually, that feels easy. I've got good harmony with these people. They're going about it the right way. We're all going to have contracts, so there's not going to be any drama if anything goes wrong. You have to think all these things through when you collaborate with people. So I think what is coming up right now for many are visions, ideas, and new senses of identity about who you might be right now on Earth, or what you might be here to do on Earth right now. And they're often coming in as activation forces. They're not just coming in as instructions that you need to go and get done in 3 weeks. And actually, the more you can let it sit in your awareness, and the more you can pay attention to what comes in to support this vision on the ground, the richer, the stronger, and the more robust it will be when you do build it. And so that's my one piece of advice to anyone having big visions at the moment. It's like if tomorrow you woke up with this blinding clarity that you're supposed to move country, I always say, great, you can move country in 6 months. So let's give this some time, because moving country is a big deal. Let's not just do this next week, unless at the age of, 33, because you've never done anything that outlandish. You've always been very responsible, very serious. Maybe for you at 33, you are supposed to jump out the plane without a parachute, and that's your learning. So we're all so unique, but any vision that comes to us and through us, for me, is a collaborative moment or opportunity that we get given, that we try on for size, and it's about how that vision will or won't manifest in our energy field. And sometimes a vision is sent to you to prepare you for a slightly different vision, but first you need to go this way. So I guess that's more me giving some advice on how to deal with these visions as they're coming in. But yes, in a recent energy update, there was a very strong message about how many healers, particularly in this second half of 2025, the energy for these visions, ideas, and collaborative opportunities and people has gone up. And it may even be, Emilio, that right now you or anyone listening or watching has just met like a really great person that they'd never met before. And there's either a friendship or some kind of thing brewing between you and them, and you don't know it yet. But a year from now, you and they are going to do something together. So sometimes the visions are crystal clear, and they do come with kind of an instruction manual or an invitation to be an instruction manual. And sometimes the visions are really amorphous, and it's our job, I think, to, if we notice our human brain or ego getting frustrated that we can't see the path to make it happen now, it's not time. And that's okay. The vision is still real. It's just, it takes 9 months for a baby to come out of a body. And I often think in 9-month cycles with creativity. And just to reassure anyone out there listening who's like, I've been trying to do this for years. There's a vision I've been working on since 2014 that still has not come to fruition. But it's a bigger thing, and I'm definitely doing things. It's not that I haven't been busy since then in that way, but it's not time. I'm even lightly holding it, because if I'm wrong and it won't go away, and it keeps getting stronger the closer I get to it. But I think as a creator or a healer or a visionary or a builder, you've got to know there is a timing for everything, and it's often not as personal as you think. Sometimes the world is not yet ready for your thing. That's why there is a delay, not because you are self-sabotaging or you think your imposter syndrome has stopped your creative flow. No, it's just not time. So we have to be very careful about too much self-annihilation, because that's a human disease. It's not a spiritual way of being. And so we have to catch that in ourselves. That's often where our work is, I think, as creators of either new consciousness in ourselves or something on earth that's going to bring something to other people.
Before today's transmission, I wanted to take a minute to let you in on something that could change your life. If you've been doing the inner work and still feel like you're walking this path alone, you're not the only one. Most spiritual spaces give you endless content to consume, but not a tribe to grow with. That's why we created The Deep Dive, a living spiritual ecosystem designed to help you grow in community, rhythm, and real embodiment. Right now, our members are embarking on a journey exploring a core spiritual and practical teaching through daily activations, live community gatherings guided by me and our facilitators, and also participating in sacred challenges that are designed to help you live your practice and bring it to life. You'll be surrounded by seekers and leaders who've decided that they're done doing this work in isolation. If you're ready to find your people, visit the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen right now, and I'll see you inside. And when it comes to instruction manuals, as you said, I know a big part of your work now has been bringing through these transmissions from your guides, the Z's, really around this future iteration of the human and going into this acceleration of consciousness. I'm wondering if for a moment we take a pause in this conversation and go in and ask the Z's for some clarity around where we're headed, because they have a higher perspective on things that allow us to sort of see those visions even clearly, because our human mind can take a vision, and if we know where we're directing that vision toward, in the sense of, okay, but humanity is evolving in this direction, I feel like that can even ground those visions with a lot more groundedness and clarity for what's to come. So
Absolutely.
As we've always done, we're here to hold the space for you whenever you're ready.
Beautiful, thank you. I'll channel them in just a moment. But yeah, to what you said, I realize I haven't really responded to. You've mentioned a few times, the transmissions that come through. So yeah, I'm about to do initiation for the 5th year. And initiation is my one channeled mystery school a year, meaning it's led by my guides, even more so than anything else I do, in that once a week on a Wednesday, I go live for 90 minutes and channel them, and there's a transmission that they give, and I never know what it is that Wednesday. But across the 4 weeks, the transmissions from the Z's coupled with the calibration videos that I then do to respond. Calibration videos for me are a chance for me as an intuitive human to reflect on what came through in the channel, and also feel into the group and how they might be experiencing the channel and what may have come up for them. Because essentially these are like big doses of consciousness, and they come in to reorganize our consciousness. And so what I've noticed with initiation is that it seems to set up the next year of my work in an interesting way, in a way that I wouldn't necessarily have expected. And you mentioned the new human or the future human. So I did a book and audio recording set, or audible, with the brilliant Regina Meredith, who I know you also are closely connected to. And in that, Regina interviewed the Z's all about the future and where we're going and the future of humanity and what will consciousness look like. So that was the future human, which came out earlier this year. Initiation is, if you like, the future human applied. It's how are we becoming this? And And that's what the initiation transmissions do. They literally are a transmission for you to take in through your mind, your soul, your heart, all parts of you that are feeling or sensing, and to allow whatever reorganization is meant to take place so that you then come to the other side. So with that said, I will grab a crystal here and we'll go.
It's
to
almost
the
like an initiation for you as well, because if it sets up the direction to where your work is headed and people get to go through that with you, that makes it even more powerful.
Yeah, no, that's why I love this experience so much, because it's, especially when we did the first year, I didn't know if we'd ever do it again. You know, you never know. But yeah, 5 years in, it's always an exciting. It's made the fall or the autumn very exciting for me and my team, because it's a great thing to do across those months. Also, I think there's something about people going a little more inward. I know that's not true of both hemispheres on the planet, but for many of us, there's a bit of an inward feeling in that period. So it seems to suit.
Yeah. Yeah, especially we mentioned in our last conversation at the beginning of this year how 2025 was really about new beginnings, because we had just culminated a cycle. And right now, I feel like the frequencies that we're able to ground in right now will set the frame for the next 7 to 10 years that are coming down the line.
Definitely. Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, I'll close my eyes, and within however many seconds we'll hear from the Z's, and then I guess you can just facilitate, or they may open with a message. I'm not sure.
This isn't our first rodeo. This is round 4.
Is it round 4? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Cosmic consciousness. Cosmic consciousness. That is one of the, we will say, themes, or we should say, vibrations that we are now working on bringing through in all of the, what you would call, work or transmissions that come from us through Lee to you. Your cosmic consciousness is the next frontier for humanity. So your human consciousness, the consciousness of your heart, your third eye, your mind, all of that has been expanding. But where that leads you is cosmic consciousness. The ability to no longer see the walls of humanity as walls. Instead, you start to recognize that humanity and the earth are a holodeck that you are exploring. And this holodeck is a place where you have a holographic reality in front of you that will often represent experiences you have had in your past, or your society has gone through in your past, but always with new elements. There is no such thing as a complete replay of the past. The past always gets updated in some way. So even though elements of the past might be moving through your world right now for healing and for review, equally they are moving through you for healing and for review. You are also receiving and imbibing a great deal of new information and new understanding. Recognize how little any of you have ever been encouraged to seek the new. Recognize how your planet has been a planet that has very much wanted to organize how you learn, what you learn, and where you focus as you learn. Cosmic consciousness does away with all of that. Cosmic consciousness opens the playing field so that you are aware of all dimensions at any time you wish to focus on it. Now, some of you may say, well, this sounds wonderful. Others among you may say, well, this sounds a little overwhelming. I'm already too sensitive for my own good. And we say, well, your cosmic consciousness will always help with that. Because for those of you who feel like you are a little stuck with your, shall we say, human patterns, human behaviors, human beliefs, human emotions, when you open spiritually, it accelerates your ability to release and move through those patterns, behaviors, limitations far faster. And that cosmic consciousness is what you remember as home. It is the part of you as a soul and as a spark of light on earth. understands you are connected to the vastness of light everywhere. And in many ways, cosmic consciousness is a little like the human internet. So it is when you are able to tap into and plug into everything everywhere all at once. But it does not require a computer. It does not require any technology. The technology is the human body and the human energy field. And once the human energy field and the human body are allowed to reconnect to the mainframe of everything everywhere all at once, things become quite magical for you. However, for many of you, especially if your awakening was a surprise or it came unexpectedly, it can be very destabilizing and ungrounding for a while. There can be a period of weeks, months, or years in your life where you feel like you letting go of who you were has caused some kind of chaos to your life. Some of you choose to do that. You choose to, shall we say, blow up the farm in order to see what the field looks like when the farm is no longer there. And this can have quite devastating effect. It's not just a liberating thing. It can bring grief and all kinds of feelings, and it can also bring hurt feelings from anyone who is no longer in resonance with you because you have blown up the farm. But when you are through that period, you start to recreate from a different vantage point. Once your cosmic consciousness has returned to your awareness, you no longer see the earth or creation or relation in the same way. You start to have a vast understanding and awareness and sensory ability that you previously were not accessing. This changes everything that you do, every relationship you have, in subtle but sometimes overt ways. So there are many of you right now who are in this newborn phase where you are feeling very alive and perceptive in ways that you do not ever remember feeling before. But this is not always convenient on a planet where others are not necessarily in possession of the same awareness yet. So you find the ones that you resonate with, that you can have the conversations that you need with, so that you can share in the experience of what you are going through. It's very helpful for you as humans to share with each other and to mirror each other. But equally, there are also those of you who are, we will say, flying high right now, because you are finding that everything is far more alive than it used to be. And that often leads many of you to create new ways on Earth, because the existing ways on Earth are 95% of the time built on old consciousness. Consciousness that is not cosmic, that is not open, that is not broad. Yes, your arts are some of the ways that higher consciousness can come through. But in many cases, unless you are talking about nature or the purity of being with open-hearted humans or animals, it can be very difficult for you to find things on Earth that represent higher consciousness. That is why so many of you are passionate about creating them. You are wanting to update the past so that in the future there are temples of cosmic consciousness. There are activities for cosmic consciousness. There are places where cosmic consciousness is once again revered, understood, and celebrated, just as it was many thousands of years on Earth, before things got, shall we say, modified. So, cosmic consciousness is what you are all returning to, and some of you are returning to it fast, and you will then be way showers, leaders, or creators of it for others. And others among you are just beginning to put your toe in. You all go at the speed that is most beneficial for you, your life, and your energy field. As we have said before, faster is not always better. In many cases, slower can be better. Good. So, Emilio, we will hand to you.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to connect with you, Ziz. And I know for our Star Trek fans out there, they'll be quite familiar with the term that you use, holodeck. And for definition's sake, Holodeck is a fictional technology from the Star Trek that creates immersive, interactive, 3D simulated environments using holograms, force fields, and other technologies to allow users to explore and interact with any imaginable setting or scenario. I'm getting the sense that this technology is not as fictional as we thought, and it's actually pointing to a wider truth.
Received this information on their own spiritual journeys, and as is often the case with science fiction on your planet, it is often a wonderful forum and environment or landscape in which to impart spiritual wisdom, spiritual truth, and other dimensions, even though it is often laughed at by more conventional skeptics on Earth. What they are actually laughing at is the dimension of spirituality that science fiction holds. And people only laugh at things they are either afraid of, unaware of, or uneducated about.
So how would our experience within the holodeck evolve once we realize that it is a holodeck in the first place, and that we forget, or we stop forgetting, who our true cosmic consciousness really is?
Well, that will depend on a individual's journey. So there will be some individuals who will fully remember that this is an illusion, and they will live their whole life with that knowing. And for some of those people, they will have little interest in society. They will perhaps, shall we say, sequester themselves into an area of society or life or nature where they can live a peaceful life that doesn't involve butting up against too many people who do not understand the illusion that the reality of Earth is. They will take it what you might call very far, and they will live a very different life. But for most who go into an awakening experience, they will find their way to balance their own experience of life while being there as an ambassador or an invitee to others who might be ready for an initiation, or perhaps someone who is going through a similar experience and just needs a few, shall we say, pointers or pieces of advice from someone who has already lived it. So the way of awakening is usually, not always, but usually the desire is to share the energy of awakening. Some do this in what you might call more introverted ways. They share their energy by sitting in their own energy field and becoming peace. Others do it in slightly more extroverted ways. They may choose their own practices of peace, meditation, filling up their own cup, but they also decide to spend their time, their creativity, their efforts on making sure they are either spreading or supporting the word out there in the world. Some of them will do this through their job, and others may have decided it is their act of service to, while at their place of work, be the one who is available for spiritual conversations with others who may choose to have those conversations. So for many, when you are first initiated into this cosmic consciousness, it is a very personal journey. But for most of you, when it starts to settle in you, and that can take for some several years, it is not necessarily fast. It depends on the individual and how big their awakening was. But there will come a point when they will realize they want to be an ambassador and a custodian of this energy for others. So that is why many will end up either working in this area of the world or choosing to be an ambassador of this energy wherever they go, whether it is when they are out in public amongst other strangers, or whether it is something that they decide to make an aspect of their life. And this can be as simple for anyone listening as making an affirmation. So if any of you feel resonant with what we are saying, and you would like to give yourself even more clear direction about why you are here and what you are doing here, you may choose to say out loud, I am here for potent spiritual conversations with loving souls. I am here for rich spiritual connections with loving souls. You may say that every day, And you will be surprised how you affirming a sentence like that every day will bring that to your life. So you see, you can always choose. And the good news is, let's say you choose to say that for 2 weeks, you can change the sentence on week 3 and try something slightly different if you want to experience it differently. But many of you who, we will say, tune in on this conversation are here because it is your joy, your role, and your mission. And we use both of those last 2 terms loosely. We do not want you to feel them as a burden or a weight you have to carry, this idea you have a role or a mission. But it will be part of your design to become a carrier of higher consciousness and to share and spread that where and whenever you can, even as you work on your own healing and becoming higher consciousness as you go through each phase of growth and release in yourself.
Do you sense that there are some predominant circumstances or even events that humanity is drawing into our reality experience to accelerate the initiation of this cosmic awareness, cosmic consciousness, maybe interaction with otherworldly beings, interdimensional beings, or things of this nature that you see going down the line?
Yes, because there has been since 2013 an even higher, we will say, infiltration of the consciousness field of this planet from, as you would call them, interdimensional beings, but also beings from other worlds. This planet has never been solely human. That has never been the design of this planet. And in fact, it's only in recent thousands of years that you have been taught to believe that you are human only. That is what is changing on the planet. And so a couple of things we can share with you is, number one, here as we speak to you in 2025, there were timelines going back some hundreds of years that could have had all of you in a far worse place at this moment in history. But what happens is the consciousness of the energetic beings who are now working with the Earth's vibrational field, including with many of you, because you are also the Earth's vibrational field as human beings, the influx of what we will call light has shifted things to such a degree that even though you are still dealing with what you might call some of the lowest of the low on Earth in terms of behaviors, actions, and acts of humanity upon other humans or beings, we can tell you that your timeline has been vastly altered into a more positive timeline. That does not mean it is entirely positive, but we can tell you that it has been we won't use the word interference, but we will say alliance of other worldly and other dimension beings working through many of you as humans to have influence on this planet and to help influence this planet back towards the light when it comes to humanity. For it is the light of humanity that needs to go on, not the light of the Earth herself, not the light of the other sentient beings on this planet. It is the light of humanity. The key here is how humanity will turn and how it will shift. So, right now, many of you are in what you would call the pressure cooker, where you are still in the old power paradigm, where people are still disempowered by the system. The system in many ways serves, and in many ways has improved the lives of many people on Earth versus how things were 150, 200 years ago. And then in other ways is not good for people's health, is not good for the health of the planet. So you are in a dichotomy, but in terms of interdimensional beings, you have had beings who are inhabitants of the Earth herself and walking upon the Earth, who are from other realms, other dimensions, as are all of you. None of you are as fully human as you would like to believe you are. And that is part of the remembering. When you let go of the ego and the human identity, you are returned to oneness. You are returned to your cosmic consciousness. You suddenly see from your vantage point that this holodeck, while believable, fun, enjoyable, and necessary, is also one version of reality. So this time you are in is seeing more and more of you understand this to be true. And the more of you who understand this to be true and allow that truth to permeate your being, the more it permeates the earth. The more that permeates the earth, the more your cosmic connections with other beings is allowed to take place. And we understand there is some fear for some. Well, how do we know these beings are benevolent? Yes, as above, so below. It is the same truth that there are those benevolent beings on earth in human form and non-benevolent beings on earth in human form. And the same is true when you look at universal consciousness. For what you are really talking about here is telepathy and sensory information. It is not so much about each of you having a, let's call it a three-dimensional experience of connecting with other beings from other worlds. It is instead a telepathic and sensory experience that you have first. And that is what many of you are experiencing now. You cannot necessarily put your finger on the other worlds that you are speaking to, or perhaps be able to define it, but you can feel it. And that is a shift for humanity versus where you have been for the past 5,000 years. That more and more of you are beginning to have these sensory telepathic experiences which open you to the world that you are actually in, which is 100 times and more larger and grander than your human eyes and training would have you believe.
I've heard you brought up the Z's in other transmissions, how this revolution that we're seeing in technology and also in consciousness are working in tandem. And due to that, a lot of the shifts are going on. And these are two fields that we've seen very separate to each other. We could also call them science and spirituality. How do you see these two starting to work more in tandem, and the initiatives that are leading us toward this collaboration?
Well, you have different initiatives. You have initiatives being developed by those who are free of the system, and you have initiatives being developed by those who are serving the system. And the initiatives in general we are generalizing here, but they are lighter, brighter, and more humanity focused when they are coming from outside the existing system. And the initiatives inside the existing system, which to us is what you would call the global leadership structure, the systems on the planet that keep society going, that society is also now dependent upon as a result. That is an area where we would say that the lowest vibrations are currently emanating, because a lot of the way that technology is being used in those systems is not so much about furthering humanity and human consciousness, but instead is about furthering whether it is the success of a system, the control of a system, or the power of a system. That is what technology is being used for in those areas, which is why you are in this global, shall we say, breakdown to breakthrough. The independent individual or group, free of the more global systems of money, influence, power, control, are beginning to have incredible breakthroughs. And yet it is a little like the smallest children in the playground going up against the biggest children in the playground. There is a disadvantage around height, around what they know, but the spark of life is big in the smallest children. And the spark of life is big in the most activated souls. So, as your global systems have continued to become, we will say, more corrupt and corrupted over time, even though there are some in there who are trying to bring the light and what you might call trying to be guardians or way showers of a more positive future, in general, the system itself has become sick and diseased. And that is what you are beginning to see, know, notice, and learn about. And that is a shock to some people. They do not want to know that their parents are alcoholics with mental health issues. And we are there not judging alcoholics or anyone with mental health issues, not at all. But the problem is when the parents aren't disclosing that to you, and they are doing everything in their power to hide that as a truth. They are not in integrity, and they're not being honest. That's what you're dealing with as a global system right now. So, as you go through this period where more of that gets flushed out for the world to see, and equally there are forces working inside those systems to elevate them, liberate them, and allow people back to a way of life that is more connected to what the human was originally designed to be, which is the future human, the new human, the human that's allowed to become these higher consciousness aspects that previously the system would not have allowed. That is why the individuals are so important at this time. And we do not mean individuals who work alone. They may be working in a group of 100, but they are not under the influence of global leadership, politics, power, those control systems that are already set up on Earth. And they are the control systems that are suffering at these times. It may not look that way on paper. We understand that many of you will notice that many of those organizations and corporations have been amassing more and more finance, while there are moves made to limit the financial abundance of the people at large, which serves the agenda of the global system remaining in control. That is not the passage of these times. That is not the story of these times. That is not the story of your coming decades, which is why there will be breakdown to break through. But that is why we say those of you who are working independently or somewhat independently of the main systems, you are here to build the future. And that is why so many of you feel so passionately about what you are doing. But that is also why we say, and Lee alluded to this earlier, be loose with the timing. For when you are creating something for the outside world, it is not upon you to decide when the world is supposed to receive it. There may be some diversions to your plans because the universe knows when the world is meant to receive it, and it will help you arrive at that point organically. Good.
What can you tell us about that original intention for the human, or what you refer to as the future human, when it comes to activating this cosmic consciousness? How will that play out in the sense of what we were originally meant to be?
Well, the question is always going to be, how elevated can Earth become? And it's not necessarily going to be that human beings are the only vessel through which the Earth becomes more elevated. But given we are speaking to you in human form in the year of 2025, we can tell you that the next few centuries, humans are very much a part of this change, and that is very much a part of the design of the human. But the future human is simply a human that is allowed to understand its place in the universe. And when we say understand its place in the universe, we don't just mean on a mental level understand it, on a sensory, energetic level understand it. To be able to stand as a human being on Earth and realize you are connected to everything. You have the ability as a sensory instrument to tune in on anything and everything. It doesn't mean you all will. It doesn't mean you all should at this moment in your life, but that is your original design. The design has been changed over the years. So there have been 5 different potential stages for human evolution, meaning your very original cosmic blueprint when humans were first, we will call it, incarnated onto this earth. That original blueprint held a very high ideal, but it was very quickly tampered with. And so there have been 5 stages at which humanity's, shall we call it, greatness in terms of its ability to become higher consciousness in the body and become a being, an ambassador that has extraordinary abilities, not just on Earth, but for all planets. You see, you were never supposed to be quarantined to this planet forever. That was just a temporary thing. Humans have been quarantined on this planet for a while, but that is now over. So you are going into a period of your history where in the coming century or two, you are going to be reunited fully with universal consciousness. So, to answer your question, the goal is always, how much more universal energy, life force, and wisdom can I as a human vessel allow through my human story and onto the earth, which is the singular path that each of you are walking. The collective path that then gets revealed is that when so many of you lights around the world light up, you start to create a harmonic resonance field between you. Even if you don't meet each other or know each other, you start to vibrate and you start to sing together. There are people that you do not know right now that are part of your soul group in other countries, and they are vibrating like you are, and many of them are in exactly the same place as you. If you were to have a conversation with them, you would find it very reassuring because they are struggling with the same things you are struggling with right now, but you are all upshifting together. So, the design of the human was always to be a bridge between all beings universally. Still animalistic in form, not completely ephemeral, but animalistic in form with enough of a connection to a, we will call it, elevated universal consciousness energy field that would allow humans to not just evolve in consciousness, but also physically over time. That physical evolution has been very halted, but you are about to go into a period, and it's already beginning because there is a lot of curiosity, interest, and development around this. You are about to go into a decade or two where the revolution around human health will be quite extraordinary. There will be advances unlike any of you have seen or imagined where human health is concerned. Many of these will rise to the top. Some of them will be suppressed because of some of the control systems that are already in place, but they will not be suppressed forever. The times of suppression are over. The success of suppression is no longer as easy as it was, thanks to the internet coming along and blowing the doors open for many of you. So, yes, you will be advanced beings in this lifetime compared to the beings that you were, and you will build that on the shoulders of those who came before you. But to answer your question in simple terms, human beings were always meant to be universal transmitters in human form. And the story that humans were told about themselves was anything but that, to keep them reduced and focused on the small. That is why so many of you are very now focused on the vastness and remembering your place within it.
I would love to ask you one more question, Ziz. Our last conversation, you gave us an invitation to become custodians for the regeneration and the repair of this planet. I wanted to ask, what would be the highest demonstration for any of us listening right now to be those custodians of regeneration and repair for the planet herself?
It is going to be different for each of you, but for some of you it will be bringing love to the hearts of those whose hearts have shut down to the planet. Because you have to remember, when a heart is shut down, it does not see what's outside itself. It only tries to activate the light of the heart from inside itself, meaning it will use outer events, stimuli, people to try and activate its own heart. That is stage one. That is what we would call the very beginnings of human healing. When the heart is open, an open heart will always sense heart resonance in the planet as a whole. Be it in animals, be it in nature. And of course, there are some of you who are more wired for nature, some of you who are more wired for animals, some of you who are more wired for people. But all of you who truly open your hearts will become more unified in feeling the heart in everything, and so you will become custodians of it. So there are some of you here whose job it is to work on the hard-hearted humans, to help them land more softly in their heart so that they can be innovators on the planet. So what we will say to you is follow your path. There might be a part of your mind that says, well, maybe I should become more of an environmental activist. And we say, that's a wonderful idea. How does it feel to you and how is it going? And if you say, well, it doesn't feel good and it's not going well, then we say, then it's not your path at this time. Let someone else play that role. Maybe you're supposed to play a role that helps open the hearts of humans who will ultimately feed into the environmental activism. It can be very easy for all of you to get a savior complex and start to think the world needs saving and therefore I should do X, Y, or Z. We say to you, what you should do is me. What is me right now? What is the part of me that wants to contribute? And all of you are doing this, and this is why earlier there was talk with Lee of not being so hard on yourself as humans. Overly judging yourself, being overly hard on yourself, this is a way to stop the spiritual flow of energy in your body. So when you notice that happening, this is a healing moment for you. This is a moment where you are going to inquire and dig deep. Why is this coming up for me? What does it remind me of? Is there a history I can feel in this feeling or thought that I'm struggling with? You need to get under that so that you can once again open your heart. For many of you, becoming custodians for the planet is twofold. It is caring deeply for this planet, what happens here, but it is also, for many of you, reclaiming your own power and your own sovereignty, because you are often told off for what you are doing to the earth as humans. You are often told that you are doing a very bad job as humans. Well, we would say that would be fine if every single one of you had a vote. At the moment, you do not. That's not how this planet is set up. You're told you have a vote, but your vote is nominal and cursory at best. At the moment, the systems of this planet that are damaging, that many of you disagree with, are continuing because you are not allowed to change those systems. So what can you change? You can change the consciousness of the humanity living in those systems so that more and more people recognize this is not resonant. And more people start to say it. And you might think it requires going to the streets. It does not. It may at times, but it does not. It requires a vibrational shift in the population. That is why so many of you work with other humans. Not necessarily because you are highly focused on helping humans open their hearts and that is your end goal. No. Your end goal is a better world, and helping humans open their hearts is an enormous part of that.
Thank you, Ziz, for such an expansive conversation and transmission. Whenever you're ready, we'd love to welcome back Lee, and my full appreciation and love to you and the service you do for humanity.
We would echo the exact same words back to you, Emilio, for the space and the frequency that you hold on the planet to allow these, we will call them cosmic conversations, to take place and to emanate into the hearts, energy fields, and bodies of those who listen and those who resonate. Everything is a transmission stream. And when words are used in an elevated fashion, they can be an incredible force for healing, for regeneration, for renewal, and for transformation. So, in honor of you and your service, Old Soul, and in honor of your community and what they are allowing into themselves so that they become the future human. In peace and in love to all.
Much love. Whoa. Whoa, Lee. How do you feel, first of all?
Good.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, good. Good, thank you.
I'm like trying to process so much right now. It's like a multi-dimensional space that we just entered. I heard them bring up topics that I'd never heard them get into before, such as the holodeck, the global systems and how specific they were around those intentions and the design of the human. I don't know how much you can bring back or remember right now, but
Well, I remember
powerful.
certain things that I've never heard before, and I've never heard that there have been 5 stages of tampering with humans. That was new information, and that feels very future human. The Regina book and audio book. Yeah, and I think also I like that what was brought up near the end, because this is something that I have perhaps been encumbered with in my own self and have had to work to shift in myself, and the Z's have helped me with that, and then I've been a voice of this for others, is this idea of I need to save the planet, I need to save the world, I need to save this person, and the Z's will go nope, 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 nope. No saving. And of course, saving might be the very game you need to play on the holodeck for 10 years. And that's very true for you, and it's very aligned. But there will come a point when you will be alleviated of that burden, because none of us are here as an island. We're here as a collective. So I like that came out near the end, because I think it can, especially with the doom and gloom narrative, it can be overwhelming, and there can be this tendency to go, how can I help? What can I do? And if you notice how I was then, I was panicking. That's not the helper you want at the party. If you've got one friend who's calm, hi, can I help? What's needed to be done? Choose that person. Do not choose the first person who's running a hot flash at the same time. They're in the menopause or the menopause, or they're just very hot with the need to help. And I think that can be a healer disease. That can be a shadow for all of us as healers around needing to save, wanting to save, getting ourselves caught in people pleasing and trying to save. And the Z's have really taught me over the years, and so has working with people one-on-one and then in workshop rooms. Our job is to offer, and our offers will be received, our offers will be rejected, our offers will be imbibed and absorbed, our offers will be gently tasted. It's none of our business. How what we offer or what we transmit is used. And I think when we get too overly invested in that, we've forgotten ourselves and our own journey, and we've forgotten to keep the balance on our own alignment and the fact that we're here today, we're alive today. Today you and I are alive, I think, because we're doing this, or we've gone somewhere else and they just haven't.
This is a virtual reality holodeck.
Exactly. And they brought up the holodeck in the future human, and I know Star Trek. I'm not super familiar with it, but
me either. Yeah.
But it's interesting. They've brought that up before, and I think it's probably because more people. My sense of it is more people are beginning to see life that way than ever before.
Did you ever see life that way before?
I did. I used to have this recurring dream when I was a kid. It's the only recurring dream I had. And to me, I now see it as a spiritual dream. And I'll share the dream, but I don't want people to freak out. I don't want people to assume.
I've had some pretty weird dreams, so
okay, good.
Shoot for it.
I only say that to people who might, use some of my words or the Z's words as instruction in their life. Listen to this dream with a light touch, okay? Because I'm not saying this is what I think is happening, although who knows. I had this dream when I was a kid that was recurring, that we're all in some kind of giant alien warehouse. And everything that we are seeing right now is actually black. It's not color. But the way that we're programmed to perceive everything, we are interpreting colors that we're seeing. But actually, we're all just, we're all in this alien warehouse being watched while we go through this experience. Now, to me, I don't necessarily think that's true. Although, hey, if we die and they go, you were, we'll go, okay, whatever. But I think there is a metaphor, a truth in that for us, in that, we're in this identity life. We have past lives, we have future lives, we have simultaneous lives, but we're in this identity life for one go. one go round as Emilio or Lee or whatever, the listener or viewer's name is. And so that rings true for me. So I had that, it's the only recurring dream I've ever had, apart from a recurring dream in which I met my guides. And so to me, I think since I met my guides, everything changed. I started to understand the other dimensions of life, even if my focus isn't always on them. I'm also quite grounded person, and I think like many humans, I've taken my spiritual experiences, learnings, and unexpectedly became an ambassador of all of that stuff in this world, and didn't know that would be a thing or a possibility even. And I think that's common for many of us. So it's not that you no longer see yourself as human. I think it's that you no longer perceive yourself as a limited human. You go, wow, this is a pretty extraordinary vessel, because I can be in this vessel having cosmic experiences, which means this body is cosmic. I was told this body is of the earth, and I was told this body is this, and that my life should look like this. And I think when you've had a spiritual awakening, you no longer buy that. So it doesn't mean you know everything. And if anything, I think the more you awaken, the less you know, which is a gift, because you go, oh, I really don't know much. That's great. That's very freeing. I should try and remember that if I get into a fight with someone. But, I think there's something to living in both worlds. And I think as more of us are allowed to live in both worlds, because there's a greater number of people doing it, it will change what we see on this planet. It will change what people believe is entertainment. It will change environments that people want to be in or don't want to be in, there are certain environments that lots of us who are spiritual just don't want to go to anymore, because they were built on an old vibration, and you can feel it when you go in there. You go in there and you start to shrink or shut down. You're like, oh, to be in this energy, I have to shut down. It's not where I want to be anymore.
Thank you for sharing that dream. I'm sure that a lot of people tuning in today can have resonance with some sort of similar dreams, and if you do, I would love if we could all share it in the comments and get to know each other's dreams as well. And as you know, Lee,
I know how the world works, Emilio. The disclaimer here, everybody, please do not go out there saying Lee Harris said we're all in an
alien warehouse. That's going to be the title.
I've been doing this work long enough to know, oh God, someone's good, but whatever. That's, it is what it is.
Disclaimer,
people hear what they want to hear.
Disclaimer heard.
Yeah. No, that's not what Lee thinks.
And I could talk to you for the next 48 hours, brother. I do want to be respectful with your time today. And just before we log off, I'd love to give you the space to let people know where they can connect with you even further. I'm really excited about initiations this year. So if you want to tell people exactly where they can head over, because it's starting in a few days to do that, and anywhere else they can connect with you today.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me. It's always such a treat to be with you. And I've told you many times, I so admire you and respect you. And you're one of those people who give me hope for the future. So that's great. So thank you for being so young and yet so old soul at the same time. So you can connect with me on YouTube. I have a channel there, Lee Harris Energy. Every month I do these 30-minute free energy updates, which is a little bit like a weather forecast for the energy, basically. Or I'm referring to things that are already happening, not necessarily always predictive. But then initiation begins on October 22nd, and it's going to run for 4 weeks. It's always very exciting. We also, as well as the Z's channels and weekly teachings and reflections from myself that help you organize the channels in yourself, your body, your psyche, and have your experience. We're releasing Rising in Love through initiation, which is Medicine Mantras Volume 3. It's sound healing mantras and affirmations that myself and my music partner Devor Bozique create. This is our third album, and so the affirmations will run through the course as well. I am rising in love, I am enough, I am living life abundantly, and I'm going to forget the fourth one. But it's all on the page. With
I am in an
initiation.
alien warehouse.
Yes, that one. That's our dance remix. It's very big in Germany right now. Yeah. So we also like to weave that music through, because music is such a healing force, and giving people affirmations that they can either sing or play in their home to change the energy is something we've been passionate about developing the last few years. So we also have some beautiful animated videos for the new series that I make sure finish each broadcast and initiation. So it's a very special experience. But yes, leeharrisenergy.com is where you find me and where you find initiation.
Beautiful. And the link to that will be the first line in the description of this episode, so people can go directly to that. And lastly, the admiration, brother, is beyond words that I can give right now, but just know that the appreciation and love I have for you is really deep. So much love for you, Lee. Always love our conversations and transmissions, and excited to keep doing this together.
Same. Thank you, Emilio. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Much love.